I think so. Or like the last time, we'll just discover it, right?
Yeah, like we'll be like mid conversation about being live, and then we'll be live. It's too bad because it says live. It's too bad it doesn't say live live like when you're really live. Are we live now?
I think we are. Let's do this.
Well, we need to get Neil to give us the go. Okay, so if we are live and you're listening, we're just confirming that we're going live.
Yes.
We're new to this live thing.
This is the
Scotch,
build up.
scotch, scotch, scotch.
This,
Okay.
wonderful. Welcome to those of you listening on YouTube or on LinkedIn, and congratulations for the team. We have figured out how to simulcast both on LinkedIn and YouTube. I feel very, very sophisticated. But I'm here once again with Scott Martin with Groundswell Origins. I'm once again displaying this great book from him. And we're here to talk about the new growth framework and really help businesses today look at how to market in the modern era, uh, to cast aside some of the long-standing misperceptions that exist today on how to best market your business and really take your growth to the next level. I'm excited to have Scott with us. Scott, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. And it is a framework. It's like totally things are totally changing. Like let's be honest. Like it's not like another another year gone by. We're in a really pivotal time with AI and stuff. So I think this is especially today's topic. I think it's gonna be a wildly interesting. So I'm looking
I
forward to it.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and I liked how we started thinking about this. It's this concept that traditional marketing is losing its edge. I want to let you start first and kind of share some of your perspective on that, uh, because I think it's important.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, let me just start with this: is that anyone that's listening and stuff, Kurt? Like, let's just like kind of like, is it does it not feel that everybody can feel marketing there, it feels like there's a change, like there's not just like I see the results whatever, there's a feeling, right? And then on top of that is actual results, like what we're seeing with clients, how things are shifting. And so what I'm actually writing about this in my book. This is when you and I first started talking about this, which is the idea around tidal shift. Tidal shift is a vernacular around how the ocean functions. There's a high tide, low tide, and in between there's what's called the slack tide. And my the way I'm describing what we're experiencing right now is we for the last like I'd say 100 years. Tell me if this feels true. So I'm just going to describe what I've observed, which is it's been about attention, right? Starting from Mad Men days, it was like that's the introduction of like really advertising, and then it became more television stations, more listeners, radio, multi channels, more likes, more comments, more follows, bigger influencers. It just became this arms race, if you want to call it, of this. Now, what was initially just an attention channel is now become an attention industrial complex. It's everywhere, right? Like the social media channels has a different attention models than everything else. Now,
Yep.
in that, it's like, what does it become? It's become better content. Like now it's like skipping to today, which is like pandas going down slides with pizzas with AI, turning into a commercial. It's so unbelievably vibrant, and the amount of content that's been created. Back in Mad Men days, you used to be able to produce it. It was a small group of people who would make content, right? And advertise and market and get your attention. Then with the internet, it became much more disrupted. And now with tools like AI and social media, it used to be when we started social media, I'd get a lot of attention and make really good content, but now there was more people making consuming attention than there was creating attention, and now it's shifted where everybody's creating and trying to grab attention, and what's that's created is there's this huge spike in content, and with AI, it's getting more brilliant, more crazy, more amazing, and at the same time, at this intersection we're hitting right now, this really like that's where we are right now is our attention, our adrenals, our and I'd say even deeper, our mistrust is
Mm-hmm.
actually collapsing right now. Our attention and trust is collapsing. And why do I say that? Recently, just like in the last, like we'll say a couple years, has been fake news. Like Like there's like, is it with AI? Is that really them? Is it Photoshop? Like all these things. The more that that's become on board, the more we don't believe. Tell me if this is true. Anyone that's listening to yourself, Kurt, just kind of tell me it's true. Initially, like say 5, 10 years ago, if you saw something on video, you went, "Oh, that's true." And now, tell me if you don't pause and wonder if it's really arresting. If you kind of go, "I wonder if it's AI."
Yeah, I mean, I certainly question the truth of it now. I question the truth,
In the court of
not
law,
just of, yeah,
it used to be if it was on video, it was true, right?
right.
It was like that was a source of truth. It's no longer a source of truth. So in addition to that, there's marketers that become these incredible liars. I mean, they've over embellished with their marketing. They've created like made themselves better than they can be. The best everything ever was the minute you bought it. And I think of it as a movie trailer. Okay,
Right.
so a movie trailer. I want you guys all to imagine when was the last time you saw this movie trailer? And the one that I'm going to say myself that I really was totally got caught in this is Phantom Menace. I remember the movie trailer. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best Star Wars ever. I couldn't wait because it's been so long and all that stuff. And yet I saw it and it was the most disappointing. I was so disappointed. And how
Yeah.
many of you watched a trailer and the trailer was the best it was?
Yep.
Right? Tons. So what do? You like don't trust trailers? Well, you'll maybe a couple times, but what happens is we want to control, we want to protect our time and attention. So what do? We go to like say I'll go on Rotten Tomatoes, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll go, oh, it's a 5 out of 5. It must be great. I remember watching a movie. It was 5 out of 5, and I couldn't believe it. It was the worst movie I ever saw, and I realized it was because it was probably a bunch of 12-year-olds gave it a 5 out of 5 or something. Not my people, not my attention or whatever. So then you go to that's called like cultural coherence. We're trying to get people to as a group, and that might be like ratings for a business, and we've all seen that for restaurants or business, like 5-star stuff, right? Then you go to
Mm-hmm.
industry, which is like IMDb, and I'm like, well, they go to a cross section of views, sales, all that stuff. And me and my wife were actually going through the IMDb list, and there was so many movies that just did not resonate with me, and some of them were so bad we didn't finish. So we do those things like we're looking for reviews in business, we're looking for stars and guarantees, and we're slowly becoming increasingly more mistrustful of it. So this is the mistrust of movies. Then one day, Kurt, I know you like fishing, for example, or I know you like Indy 500, and I go, there's this great new movie. Maybe you never even heard of it. It was, Will Ferrell starred in it, and it's like, and it's like I think you're just gonna love it, and you see it, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's because I knew something about you. Now, the one cool thing with hyper personalization and AI is that that's probably going to maybe be a possibility. But the truth is, right now, we're in this like trough of mistrust where we don't trust marketers. We don't trust, like, you go on Instagram, an influencer goes, "This is the best thing since sliced bread." We're not buying into it. I think ask anyone that's listening if they really are honest with themselves. We don't trust stuff. So what is that ushering in? I think that what we can talk about is what's the really hopeful outcome at the end of this conversation is what's next. But for now, let's stay on this lack of trust. Tell me if what I'm saying resonates with you, because I believe wholeheartedly that this right now is it's going to get worse before it gets better. And for businesses that lean into understanding this, and the businesses that actually, and I got some ideas and examples of what that look like, but first starting with the mistrust is, I think there's a huge opportunity here, and I don't think it's just because of a trend. It is a cycle, but I think it's never fallen to stop. Being trustworthy is never fallen. So to be clear, I've always think it's there, but I think now it's like become imperative.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. The since you were mentioning movies, one of my favorite moments in the great cartoon, The Incredibles, is when mom is talking to her superhero son, and he's arguing that should be able to run as fast as he can, and she says, "Well, son, everybody's special," and he says, "Well, if everybody's special, then nobody is." And I thought that was such an interesting line, and it applies to this whole concept of creators. If everybody's a creator, we're all creating, right? It all starts to look the same. How many people do we know now who are trying to generate entertaining content and build audiences on social media? So it's ubiquitous. It's, to your point, it's not just the few of us. The creativity level to grab attention is much higher. And then even if you achieve it, people may not trust what you see. We got to get an obligatory Tony Robbins quote in, right? He says we're flooded with information, starving for truth. So we have we're just full of information. We're starving for truth. We don't know what we trust. Even in the last 2 days, I got a text message. I'm in the middle of selling a house, got a text message from the title company. Immediately assumed it was a fake. And then 2 days ago, I was with a friend. We were talking about an Indy car. He said, one of my friends sponsored an Indy car. And he gave the name of the company, and I was with somebody who's at the Indy 500 all the time at the IMS Motor Speedway. She said, I've not seen that car. He pulled up a picture, and we're looking around. We realized, nope, that was a fake, right? Somebody photoshopped their logo, and I think in this case, the intent was it was supposed to be funny, but we just don't know what to trust anymore. We've all been duped by it. And then you mentioned AI, and I think AI adds a different flavor to it because when you can make so much with AI, then I think the trust or maybe the value of some of this content goes down. Because if you saw a 60-second television commercial, 10 years ago, it was probably made by a creative agency who put, weeks, if not months of time into it. And there was appreciation for what it took to record that Pepsi ad or that Coke ad. Now, if it can be done using AI in 10 minutes, then the value that people are putting on the content you put out has now gone down. I think that contributes to this attitude you're talking about where people don't trust it. They also don't value it in the same way.
Yeah, there is so many things to unpack on this topic, which is like one is, okay, if we don't trust something, what do we trust? So we trust human interactions, right? We trust like things that we can feel and touch, and so with AI, it's kind of gaming that a little bit because you're seeing people that are using their own likeness and then writing a script, and then AI is actually making a video as if it's them. And the folly of that is sure, it's efficient. It probably allows you to scale you and all these things. But here's the thing. When somebody knows that that's AI, if I told you I wrote my book and it's all AI, the level of respect and trust is just not there. Like you're like going, is that
Right.
like, you know what I mean? And so if I now say, oh, I did that with AI. Oh, by the way, but this is me doing it live. I no longer trust you because I'm like, I can't tell which is that. And even if you declare it, it kind of, I think when people jump in those things, I don't think you can take it back. The genie's out of the bottle. But I think if
Yeah.
you take a stance now before it becomes required, you're going to see requirements. I believe there's going to be legislation which is going to verify this is AI. But I think if like when I write articles, if I use it even for editing, I put edited by Grok. But I always make sure it's like I want people to know I write my own stuff. So that's me preemptively anticipating that I want to make sure people know when they read from me, they know that I'm writing it for me. And I think a lot of businesses and brands and individual brands are not actually taking that initiative.
Yeah. You mentioned that, and when we authored our book, our publisher put that in, and you probably can't see that here, but there's a little logo here on the bottom that says certified written by a human.
I think
And
yeah, it's like organic,
yeah, when I saw it, I thought, well, I'm kind of glad they put it in there because we actually did do this. We didn't write any of this stuff with AI. We edited this ourselves. Kristen and I got out our pens, and Kristen's she likes paper and pen. She got out a pen and wrote on this thing. And so, and I think you're right about people are going to eventually want to see that too. And I love the metaphor. It's like organic. Well, this is an organic piece of produce, right? This isn't artificially created. And so the parallel between, buying, say, an organic vegetable versus, buying something that's genetically modified. It's a very interesting parallel. And I think the excitement I feel about being able to scale something with AI is counteracted by the fact that I now know that when I generate a piece of content by AI, there's a decent chance that people are going to see it and think, well, that didn't take much time. There's not much thought into it. That's not authentic. I had the same experience with a vendor of ours. We had a vendor, very expensive expert that we consult when we have, say, a tax question. And we sent a tax question to this expert, and they shot back an answer that was clearly derived from hitting up ChatGPT. And I thought, I can't believe I paid $500 an hour for them to do something I could have done myself.
I think
And
that's what a lot of people are going to feel about a lot of stuff now.
Yeah. So it devalued the advice. If I'm going to get my advice from ChatGPT, then I can, I can pay $200 a month for their best version and not have to pay an hourly rate for its opinion. And so it just changes, I think, how we're going to value. So there's a lot of positive from a marketing perspective in AI, but I do think it devalues things like when I write a case study or put out a video, because people are going to think, well, I don't know that free download. I don't know if that's as valuable as I thought it was going to be before, because I might be able to put a prompt in a ChatGPT and get the same thing.
I think that we haven't hit a threshold yet. Tony Robbins talks about threshold. And that threshold is because something big is going to happen, some major painful experience is going to happen for individuals or as a collective. It's a little bit like that. I don't know if you've heard the story of like this farmer. He goes up to the other farmer, and he's like trying to talk to him about something, and he goes, "Why is your dog whining?" The whole time he's talking, he goes, "Oh, he's sitting on a nail," and he's like puzzled, and he goes, "Well, why doesn't he move?" He goes, it doesn't hurt enough. And it's like that is sort of like what I think is what we're going to experience is right now it doesn't hurt enough. I can already see it. I can sort of see it's a little bit painful, but I think something painful is coming our way. And I think I saw Anne Handley had this great post on LinkedIn, hat tip to her, and she called it, she's really almost like rejecting so much of AI copy. She can't stand it, in which all these AI bros talking about, you can speed up everything. She's going, I'm calling it analog intelligence. There's like another level where people that are willing to craft the human spirit inside of things and make it real is going to be its own like category that I appreciate. And I think that not everyone will. I think I'm okay with that. I think no different than some people like crappy produced furniture and some people appreciate handmade furniture. I think it's just there's going to be a chasm. And in fact, Gartner has this great research, which I love the name of it, which is there's a new category in branding that's going to emerge. And then it's going to represent 25% of brands, which is, to me, I'm like, that seems so crazy, right? Like that's a quarter of brands, and they're calling them acoustic brands. Why? They're marketing the absence of AI. And I wonder, it's like I think that AI, what they're referring to, and I think what a lot of people are thinking is there's a lot of things for AI that we don't affect us as humans, but I think when we're trying to fake being human, or we're trying to fake human communication or creativity, I think that is the part that we're talking about. That these brands that go, you're not talking to a bot, you're talking to a real human. People are willing to pay more. I think it's gonna be a really profitable category. So as we kind of guide brands on how to move ahead, that's how I'm viewing it. I'm going, this is a category opportunity to create a gap and create a meaningful, profitable brand positioning outside of the marketplace that's differentiated. And I doubt it's going to go out of style.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's one of these dangers for a business who's trying to create differentiation, trying to get out into the market and build something that is real, significant, and long lasting, that they recognize what's happening here, not get caught up in all of the hoopla, and really put a big emphasis on what's going to generate a true trusting relationship between me and my consumer. And we referenced last week, you talk about building community in Groundswell, building I love the surfing metaphors here for those of you who who've missed some of this, building community, and then we talk about using your values and talking about your values and uh, you know accessing your tribe, and that's the distinction we're talking about here. If there's this kind of trust trough, if there's a distrust of because people don't know what is real and what's not real. People don't know what to trust. People don't know if the news is really accurate or not. They don't really know if they're getting a biased perspective on something. There's news and commentary are very mixed in today's world, and so if you're putting all of your attention as a marketer on how to get eyeballs, you may be falling short right now because you're thinking, I made some really cool creative stuff, but it's not. Maybe people are watching it, but it doesn't seem to be converting into sales. And our argument would be the reason why is you may have eyeballs, you don't have trust.
Attention. It's a funny game, right? Like Gary Vee talks about, and he espouses like browbeating your audience with lots of content. It's an arms race. I just saw a movie on Netflix called The Liver King. You know what I'm talking about? This guy got the beard and he ate raw pork.
Yeah.
So I
Yes.
saw it, and what I saw in there was at the beginning of the movie to the end before the whole turn of events for him. I realized it was sort of like, have you ever heard the phrase "jump the shark"?
Yes.
Okay. So he hit the jump the shark moment where he's kind of like, I don't know, he was like basically shooting off fireworks and like it just one antic he had to keep upping himself. And that's the
Right.
challenge when we're stuck in this attention thing. We're going, how do we get more attention? It becomes who can yell louder.
Mm.
And I saw that in that movie where he just kept on, it just kept getting more ridiculous what he was doing to get attention because that was the driving force for driving the business. And then what he did was he lost all trust, lost his entire business. It's ironic. It's actually parallels this whole thing. He was heavy on attention. He wasn't building trust. He misrepresented himself. It was all for attention, and the thing had collapsed. Had he been from the get go built trust, was more transparent, it may have not have been as fast as growth. And that's one of the things I think why people get caught up in is attention can be fast, but the truth is attention's harder to get now than ever. It's not as easy. So you're going to spend a lot of money on attention. It's like a treadmill. Trust is different. Trust is acts a little differently in the sense that, sure, if I trust you, Kurt, but you got my attention. If you yelled across the room going fight or a fire, are you going to get full attention? Like you're going to get my attention.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean I'm captivated anyway. I'm not bought into you. But when I trust you, the difference there is it kind of leans into this magical groundswell of people want to talk. I did my whole TED talk, a little piece of it about people want to share something that's trustworthy. Oh, I got this plumber. He's great. You can trust him. I think that those personal connections, community, we'll call them communities of trust, relationships of trust, brands of trust. We'll call it, like they did in your publisher, sort of like verifications of trust, right? Like, why do we do verification on Instagram and Twitter? So we can trust. It's a trust mark. To me, this is what we're moving toward is we're going to be wanting to have things that are trust transparent and clearly where we want to share it because we trust it. Nobody wants to spread something that is untrustworthy. I don't think anyone really does, right? and
Right.
and so I think that's actually we're going back to the olden days. That's why I'm saying it's a bit of a cycle. We've hit this peak of attention, and I feel like this trough is bringing us back to a new cycle. And I feel like it's back in the farmer days when we were feeling safe. We're in the pioneers and we're on the Wild West, and we're going, do I trust Farmer Bob? And he's like, yeah, he's a little slow in paying back or something. We wanted to confer with other people before making decisions. And I think that with technology and AI, and which is actually going to enable this, is the ability to verify: do I trust this vendor, this information? You're already seeing Grok showing up and verifying what's called community comments in Twitter. That's a form of verification, if you want to call it that. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but as a business, as a brand, how could you get ahead of it? That's the question I think is really valuable to someone listening is for us to brainstorm how could they get ahead of it, because if they do, they've created, I think, a really interesting word of mouth opportunity for the business.
Absolutely. And if we're really trying to say, okay, this is, so some of you might think this is entirely bad news, but there is an amazing upside and opportunity for people who understand this and understand the power. So I think the opportunity is when you can, as a brand, as an individual, achieve a level of trust with an audience, your customers become more loyal. They're more likely to return back. They're more likely to refer you to other people, because if there's limited amount of trust, then they're going to be a big fan of the ones they know that are authentic. So for people who can be truly authentic, truly trusting, who can be transparent, who do what they say they'll do, who are who they say they are, the opportunity to overtake someone maybe who's a lot bigger but doesn't share that kind of trust with their consumers, I think, is giant in this market. And we've seen collapse in trust with even some major brands. You know, in our book we talk about how that worked for Bud Light which had a very broad consumer base, a number of them very center right, and then they partnered with a influencer that didn't represent that, and overnight $27 billion gone. And then the opportunity was for one of our friends during that process created their own brand to compete with Bud Light and was able to grow really fast as an alternative for folks who just didn't trust the Bud Light brand anymore. And they've still not recovered. And so I think the positive side of that is it's going to create opportunity for people who understand this.
Huge, huge, huge. So there's two things. First, I think for think of like entrepreneur disruption. That's never been better for small and mid-sized businesses to outperform what was traditionally larger companies. Number one, because they're still doing, like, I call it small, big, big, small. It's kind of like one of the chapters, which is when you were little. When I'm 5, I wish I was big, and when you're big, when you're older, like, oh man, I wish I had the energy of being 5, right? Like, and then brands. I don't know if your experience with this, Kurt, but my experience was when I was at these large brands like Best Buy and Detroit Pistons, HBC, and all these Sport Check. They're always wishing they could operate like the smaller companies because they were nimble. And when they're small, you're trying to do things that are bigger. I think the gotcha, the trap, is small businesses are going to run into AI going, I can scale, like I can be the biggest company, and they're going to trip over I call it, well, we've probably did saying, stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. They're going to do that because I believe, because they want to scale and do all these things more. And I think there's some room for that, but when they do it with this intent of just like scaling, they lose the opportunity to differentiate on being human, or having the sense of congruency is all we're talking about. It's not that there's anything wrong with AI. I think just be congruent across what you do. So if I say I'm a yoga studio, I'm about being mindful, but I unmindfully browbeat you with emails, how's that congruent, right? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like really being congruent, whatever it is. It's whatever, it's like a level meter. I'm not making AI wrong. I'm just going, just be coherent. Make it so it's so, like, if I say that we care about customers and service, don't send me to a bot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an important thing. When we talk about this in our book, it's you can't. We talk about the importance of discussing values and tapping into your tribe, but when you do that, you can't talk both ways. You can't say I'm one thing and be another. I love what you're saying about the opportunity for small and medium-sized businesses to challenge large ones, because I absolutely think that's true. I think that small or medium brands have a chance to differentiate in this area. Yes, they're more nimble, but they're also going to be less cautious, and so they're more willing to say, this is my ideal customer, and this person is nothing wrong with this, but I am going to build a tribe of my ideal customers. I'm willing to walk away from some, which is a lot of bigger brands just aren't willing to do. And there's some authenticity in that. This is my customer. This is who is a perfect fit for me, and I'm not a perfect fit for everyone. And a big business just doesn't see the world that way.
Yeah, like I call it, like in my book around, so I call it scaling intimacy. And I think AI has there's one piece that I really am excited about AI, hyper personalization, applied to knowing your customers intimately and giving you the ability. So it's like me, I look at tools going, don't rely on the tool AI, leverage it. And the leveraging point that I think is really interesting for small businesses is that when you're a small business, I have one company I'm consulting to right now, and they've lost their way. And it's because when they started, they were very intimate. They knew everyone by name. It was like cheers, like where everybody knew your name. And they tried to scale and they left that. They wondered where they're like, I got them back to their origins going, that's what got you here.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize how to scale that. And I think that if AI can help you scale intimacy, then and know and have hyper personalization, I think that's where the opportunity is. And if you skip ahead to try to go to automation, like remember email, people were enamored like a every every hammer and everything looks like a nail with automation and email, and they would browbeat, right? The problem with that is that it just I'm not interested in it. I kind of like I don't feel anything. I feel like I'm just being sort of beaten to death. But when someone takes a personal time and a personal note, it's very different energy to it. So when you have the skill and you're small and you go, that's our standard. Our standard is this human experience, and we're going to scale it. You'll start building the tools and the muscle. I think it's really just a muscle. But then when you get lazy and you skip ahead, it's hard to go back. That's been my experience of trying to implement going back in time. I'm looking at them and they've gone so far that it would have been far easier if they just maintained the habit and just kind of scaled it. But
Yeah.
now they have to re-engineer it, and I'm recognizing it's a huge project for them because they're kind of already in this other category that a lot of large companies come in. They wish they could deliver personalization or personal experiences like a smaller business can.
Yeah. And it's easy to fall out of that. We're not a relatively, I mean, as businesses go, we're not very big, right? Compared to say these big Fortune 500 companies, we are at 30, 35 employees. And even at 30, 35 employees, you start feeling bureaucratic, right? And so making sure you're not falling into that trap of losing some of what made you special, I think, is absolutely essential. And and again, we have a great opportunity. And I wrote that down about the idea that the AI being great for hyper personalization and for personalizing good quality human interactions or service interactions is a really powerful use of AI, and it's a different way of thinking about it than, well, I'm going to use it just to replace my marketing team, or I'm going to use it to get rid of my assistants, and versus I'm going to use it to really scale this kind of stuff.
Or use it as a tool in branding and marketing to get more specificity. And I think that's a great use of it as well. I think where the disconnect is whenever we want a human interaction, human content, human something, and we put artificial in front of it and we try to frame it as human. I think that's the first biggest like mistrusting moment. But I think if you go, hey, we use AI and this was AI, I think that's, and if you're okay with that, then that's just being transparent. I think that's a big creating trust even when you're using AI. I think that's permissible in my mind, you know. But I think what's going to be valued is what you want, what this topic is really about. What we're valuing is trust
Mm-hmm.
because we're so mistrustful. And I think that is what you can do to create as much massive amount of trust is where you can create some market differentiation. And think of it as also extreme trust. There's a book called Extreme Trust by Don Peppers. He was my mentor. He's the one that helped me build. I built my whole company on his Get, Grow, Keep. That's why I rewrote the book. Build, Give, Grow, Transform was on his model. But he wrote this book called Extreme Trust, and he explains it like this: Apple. This back in the day when Apple you buy songs, single songs, right? And he goes, "Do you remember the time you tried to buy a song twice?" And I remember. And it would go. Apple went boom. Hey, you already bought that. Now, it's a simple act. It's a simple moment of truth in a brand. But if you think about Apple and the volume they do, they could have made billions of dollars on people making the mistake of buying something twice. But why did they do that? I think they did the opposite. They created what this rubber band effect because now I have less resistance to purchasing because I know that they're going to catch me and they're going to protect me. I mean, think of a vendor that could use AI to go back to your customers going, "Hey, you slightly overpaid something." right? Like what if you used AI to go the next mile to make people go, they're always looking out for me. I believe that is the, like with AI, I think that is like, hey, I know that we budgeted our project like this, but with AI's help, we can cut it in half, and you that becomes part of the discussion of in their interest. Just like I believe that what that does is it actually drops the mistrust, increases the greases the wheels, if you will, and creates a frictionless interaction. And I think that is where my brain goes, and I think there's so many possibilities where AI could create frictionless, where I feel like I just trust you more because you're looking out for me.
Yeah, absolutely powerful. And again, just really trying to focus on there's a change happening. It might feel scary, but this is an opportunity for those willing to sit on it. And, both of us talk about this concept of sort of building a community or a tribe of consumers. I think this is related here, and I want to make sure we dig into this a little bit, which is the idea that, you're, building this community of people who trust you has a big advantage to your business. We, we cited this in our book. One of the companies that we talk about in our book several times is a company called Patriot Mobile. And from talking to one of their board members, their retention rate is amazing. And they're really connecting with customers on a cause. And they're a small wireless company compared to Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint and AT&T. But they're managed to have a higher retention rate. And why is that? And I think in parts because people are really bought into the values that they're doing, and they might be willing to deal with some growing pains as they get better and better at what they do, because they're building from scratch something that Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, T-Mobile already have. So there's this value of building a trusted community, people who care, who bought into what you're doing, because they stay around much higher. So that's one of your other, I think, big opportunities here.
That's interesting. Like, so I never really thought about that. Now that you're mentioning it, I'm like, I mean, we talked about values. I'm all in on people buy based on values, as I think I shared with the book and everything with you, and that's what got us going on this whole thing. But I never thought of it like this. I'm wondering if you could people that so you with your experience with people that have conviction and they're buying with people that share their values. I never thought of that as another layer of trust,
Yeah.
because explain that. Why do you think that is? Because it's true, actually. Now that I think about it, I feel like, I mean, if someone shares my conviction, I actually already kind of trust them because we share the values. But what is it? What is it about that we trust? We trust their
I think it's
decision making. We just trust that. What do you think it is?
I think it's a shortcut, right? So if we don't know
Right.
what to trust that's out there, we don't know who to trust, and we don't really have time to fully investigate everybody or to talk to other people and say, hey, I met Scott Martin. He seems like a great guy, but what should I know about this guy? What is a quickest way? And it's when I find that I share somebody's values, particularly faith values or political values or some kind of combination of that, and everyone has a different definition of what that is. I might say, well, at least I kind of feel like this person is one of us. Like he's one of my people. We have in common a whole set of values, and maybe we have in common some stuff that we reject, right? We both reject X, Y, Z. We met in the Tony Robbins community, so I know we share some similar values for other people who are in that community. And I think it's a shortcut, right? Because we don't have time. We're limited in our ability to determine what business should I buy from because I know I can trust them, or which media organization should I be listening to. It's going to come down to, do their convictions match my own? Doesn't mean I'll trust them all the time, but it does mean that I think we're on the same team.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's a bridge or a shortcut. Because it's true. Like when I tell someone going, look, don't but when you're listening, even to listening to us, like if you're gonna listen to anyone in marketing and strategy and stuff, it's always great when you hear like a great strategy. But I would actually go a step deeper. The deeper step is, what is the point of view or the premise of the person giving you advice? Because it may sound good, but for example, my premise is sustainable growth marketing, right? It's like ethical information management. It's I love the market, don't market more, matter more. Like these are kind of like things that actually, when you listen to what I'm saying, marketing and advertising is tax you pay for being unremarkable. As I open my TEDx, it's because that's a premise. I'm going, if you buy into that, then the advice I'm giving is connected to that trajectory, those values that I'm. And I think that most people, they focus on either only the, are they, successful, or that advice sounds great, or they seem to really be tapped into AI. It's funny because I actually look right away. I go, what is it? That's how you and I connected. I'm like, our premise of marketing and business about trust and conviction, about buying based on values, doing the right things. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like a lot of marketing, just because I can send you an email every day and browbeat you doesn't mean I should, right? So having a premise and having a direction, I think that's like what we're talking about here, which is values. I never thought of that, but that's how I would view it, because that's how I tell people: first decide how you're going to decide, then connect on what the premise of the person, can you buy into that, then the advice should be wrapped around that, and then you'll feel good about it, because then the other advice, it may not make sense to you, but at least you understand the premise of where we're going. If you're going to talk to me, I'm going to maybe do things that maybe slow you down, but it's going to slow you down so you can speed up and be more sustainable, maybe get exponential growth.
Yeah. Well, and I also talk about convictions. I use that word specifically because, and we talk about sort of faith convictions and political convictions because they're less fungible for people. One day I'm like right now, the Indiana Pacers basketball team is trending up. They came into the NBA playoffs, everyone predicting they wouldn't even make it past their first game. They're now in the conference finals. They just came back from 17 points last night to beat the Knicks in New York, and I'm excited. I'm now looking for Pacers news. 3 months ago, during the regular season, I couldn't even have told you what their record was or whether they won or lost the night before, and so I'm kind of a fickle fan in that regard. I'm going to follow the Pacers closely for a couple of weeks, and hopefully they make it all the way and win the whole shebang. And whether they do or don't, my interests will probably wane and move away. Not that I'm going to necessarily pick another team. And so we're trying, I think often when we try to appeal to people, we're often appealing on some things that are very fickle. Our attention spans in certain areas are low. But when we're talking about convictions in areas of faith and politics, those don't change. They don't wax and wane the same way. I'm to church every Sunday. I'm reading the Bible every day, right? Praying every day. And that doesn't, and yes, I have weeks where I feel like had a lot of time to do that, and others when I don't, but it's a consistent thing in my life. And so it's why I like the idea of building trust on those convictions, because there's so much deeper to our core. There's so much at the identity level for a human being, and it's not the kind of thing we change we change on a whim like we do, like me and my Pacers fandom. Sorry to the Pacers.
They got your attention. That's why right now they got your attention. What it made me think of is this trust. It's like I'm riffing right now, so this isn't like a preformed thought. So this sounds like it doesn't make sense. Okay, just give me a little leeway. But I'm like, when you describe that about your religious background, or I'm talking about the premise in which I'm operating in business. You're operating in life and in business, and me too, with my own spiritual values and so forth. It's like everyone has them, and I think that is actually like an operating system. So
Right.
we trust when we know it. Even for example, it's probably fair to say that you may have a different level of trust of someone in your own religion. Okay, we'll say like with this category, but is it fair to say, and I don't know the answer here, but like if someone was a staunch Buddhist, you now know their conviction. You still would respect them, but at least you know their operating system.
Yeah.
And that's like
I
for
like,
business. Like I think that's like an operating system. It's like lets you know the mode of decisions that are created that you can trust, even though you don't share those views. I don't share the views of someone who is like, like a brand that's like we do everything sustainable and organic. I mean, I care about those things. I'm fickle, but you know what? I really trust them when I'm going. I'm pretty sure that it's going to get really organic. I'm okay with that. It's not how I make all my personal decisions. It's not like I'm a conviction organic person, but I sure trust knowing that that's what they are.
yeah, I like the idea of you're sort of understanding their operating system. And that's why, to some extent,
I got to come up with a name.
talking
What is
about
the name? What
convictions
kind of
works.
operating system is it? Like what? It's not just an operating system. It's like something operating system.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a trademark thing there somewhere.
Somewhere. Maybe our next call we'll come up with it and we'll introduce it because in real time. But I think it's like that. Does that make sense? Because
Yes.
even if I don't share your convictions, if I know what your convictions are, it actually is helpful and makes me create more trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like
Absolutely.
what is that saying? It's like this. I'm gonna swear on this, but my friend's an asshole, but at least he's my asshole. Like it's like the friend. It's like you know what I mean. Like I know him. You know what I mean. So I don't know if that's the right analogy, but that's kind of what I'm thinking is that even when it's not, it's just even knowing. So if there's some level of transparency, I think that's what the first step of creating trust is transparency.
Yeah. Well, and what you're sort of tapping into as well, I think, is there's an increasingly diverse set of operating systems if we're looking at people that way. Particularly in an environment right now where there's a lot of conflict and a lot of people with strong opinions, and so so again, that sort of understanding. Okay, what's the operating system of that? I love this concept here. What's the operating system of that business? What's the operating system of that brand? Is so valuable because we don't know how to relate to each other, and we don't. And to go back to our first topic, we don't know what to trust, right? But if I can trust the operating system, I can make some choices and decisions, and I can be loyal, and I can refer people to them, and I can trust that when they say something's going to happen, it's going to happen.
It's like a Venn diagram operating system, because some things are the premise of business, how we deal with customers, maybe the things that we stand for, maybe the religious beliefs that we carry, or the values that we have in the business, and different things matter to different people. Like some people going, if you support, you know, Iran or Hamas or whatever, like that's going to totally change my pipe. And some people are like, I don't know, like that's not as important for me, right? So maybe that's also another factor. And you see a lot of examples of people that they created a brand, they stood for something, and it actually hurt them because in some ways it wasn't coherent for them. They're trying to follow a trend. Does that make sense? Like they're trying to follow
Yep.
like we want to what's it called when you um, uh, social like when you're faking like you're trying to like signal social signals or whatever it's called
Yeah,
something
yeah. We call it virtue signaling.
virtue signaling, right? And I think that that's fallen out of favor where people are going to follow the newest thing because that to me is like you're following the trend that's actually a form of mistrust in my mind because it's like somebody that can change their decision making. You don't trust them because you're like, I don't know where you're making your decisions from. You know what I mean? Like they're like 1 minute you trust you're doing this, next minute you're doing that. Brands I think can be that way too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, absolutely can be, and we see it. You know, when I just the episode's not out, but I just interviewed a gentleman who was with Wells Fargo, and the time in which they had to admit that they were engaged in, they were opening up fake accounts for people, in order to meet business outcomes, and you take a brand that sort of sold itself on, trustworthiness and integrity, and it's destroyed overnight, right? And so we see it all the time. Well, I think we're getting a little bit towards the end of our time, so I want to make sure we put a good bow on this particular session. So I thought, Scott, I think we've covered our topic some, but I want to make sure we end with some, like, if you're a, a marketer or you're a business, you're listening to us right now and you're thinking, okay, these guys are right. There's some problem with trust. AI creates opportunities, but also creates some of those same trust issues. And there's an opportunity here. I just want to get real practical for a few minutes. What should somebody be thinking about doing right now to take advantage of all this?
I have a simple. I thought of this. I have a very simple reframe that came from Rachel Botsman, who wrote. She wrote a book on trust. She's like a leading expert in trust, and it's that it's goes. She said something like this. She goes, "Remove the word build trust." That's
Mm-hmm.
all brands are trying to go. We need to build trust, right? And she says replace earn trust. And I think that that is like one of the most intelligent ways to say that, because I think when we try to manufacture trust, it's like artificial manufactured words. And when we earn trust, it's like human emotional connection, and when you earn, it also implies the most important thing, which you just ended on before, which is you can lose it in a second.
Yeah.
And earning is like it's such a precarious component. Is trust is how do, and with the more you earn trust and layers of trust, I think is what I would call it, is you can build what is called equity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if I over 20 years you know me and I'm really trustworthy, but one time I kind of do something untrustworthy, have I lost all trust with you? Well, depending on how big the mistrust is, but there's room for me to be able to be forgiven, or I built enough equity with you. And the only way I say that that way is a brand. A brand can go and earn trust over time, and when an employee or something happens, if you go about it the right way, it could be completely increase the trust. That's something for us to talk about next time. How can mistrustful events create meaningful moments of more trust? But you
Mm-hmm.
can definitely maybe have some room to not lose the customer, because they're giving you some leeway because you've started earning like almost like a bank account. You've got more trust than mistrust in the bank account, and I think that's probably the only thing I'd leave with, because it's like that alone, if you unpack it, is huge, hard to implement, and that's a bigger concept. There's so many other factors, but I think that was one that I think is really salient for me. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to picture somebody out there right now who, they have a good product. They really care about the service they're providing to their customers and just don't know how to break through. And I do think for that business, dropping the fascination with the latest funnel hack and Facebook ad strategy, or click funnel thing, whatever's sort of hot right now, and taking a step back and saying, instead of a tactical change, where can I connect better with my customers, and where can I earn that trust? I like that, earn that trust. How am I earning it? How am I talking about the things that matter to them the most? Because that's where the true opportunity lies. And we're easily distracted on the other stuff, right? I'm seeing it in my Facebook feed all day, or my Instagram. It's like, here's guru of the day saying, well, you just got to if you just made 100 TikTok videos a day, it'd solve your problem. But I think the opportunity here is much bigger than that. It's much more transcendent, and it probably will be key to every business's growth here for the next decade or so, is really understanding how to create and how to earn trust with your customers and build a true tribe, build a true groundswell of folks who are loyal, spending money, and referring you to others.
I think that's that. The how to earn trust is its own hour conversation, because for some people, like, okay, but how? I think that we might be worthy of us talking about, because there is so many different ways that you can earn trust that just we can talk about, because I think that'll give people a lot of ideas on, oh my gosh, this isn't as hard as I think, because it is hard, but it doesn't have to be.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, I think that draws us to a close as we're approaching 4 o'clock. For those of you who tuned in live, this is our second of 4 sessions we're going to do this. We'll be back on in a week, and I'll be on to announce hopefully that my favorite IndyCar driver, Stingray Rob, has won the Indy 500. But if not, we'll still be cheering him on, and we'll dig deeper into some of these topics so that you and your business can take advantage of what we think is one of the most important trends in modern marketing.
Yeah, this is awesome. I think this is. I love that we're talking about this new framework for growth, and I'm looking forward to our next talk.
Yep, let's do it.
Pausing.